Hey, so I'm here today with Paige Drobot, and you've got a new EP out, the Repeating Hustler EP. So tell me a little bit about that.
I'm excited to put it out because it's like different than anything I've done.
Yeah.
Not as much guitar on it, and it's just a couple songs that we worked on and have had sitting around, thought might as well come out.
Sure.
You know, what else are we doing?
You know, like, it makes me think about the whole idea, like when people write about music or discuss it, they always talk about the idea of a concept album. And sometimes artists have a kind of concept behind the lyrics or whatever, but secretly, with people in bands, as you well know, there's really like this sort of behind the scenes kind of thinking about it, because what you want with the release, it's to take things to the next level. You want to outdo yourself on the last release. Am I right?
Yeah. Might as well.
So let's get into the behind the scenes thinking. With this release, what was your goal? How are you trying to outdo what you did before?
Oh, wow.
Was it like recording method or?
Well, this one we had Grant Triple producing it. I'm a huge fan of Grant, like all of his work. And
I've heard the name, so tell me like what?
Holy Void,
okay,
and the Catamounts, and yeah, he works at Exchange Studio. So it was really sweet. It wasn't me producing it.
Yeah,
the one song, Repeating. I'm talking about Repeating. It wasn't me producing it. It usually is, and I'm very much like, I'll do one take. Cool, good to go. That's the take, right? Whereas Grant was like again, and I don't really have people pushing me. I'm usually the one doing that, and I'm kind of not tough.
Okay.
So yeah, like he squeezed a performance out of me that I wouldn't have got because I would have only done it once, right? And plus there was like an audience, because you know me, I always like to get things the sneaky for free way.
Oh no, I didn't know that. Okay.
Oh, I'm very cheap. I'm very cheap.
All right.
And I just don't have any money. So like, he offered this, it was through like the Mid-Ocean School, so there was like an audience of 18-year-olds mostly watching this, like students watching him see this how session works, and like, so we were like the example band, so I was on my absolute best behavior.
Okay.
Because there's all these people, and I, like, as a teacher too, you're like, oh, I gotta be nice, like he's trying to teach this class, like I can't say.
So you were like the subject in a production school lesson.
Yeah. Yeah, like there's an audience the whole time, like of these kids, and they were like, when are you gonna auto-tune her?
Oh, interesting.
Or like, they're like, why are you bouncing it all to tape at the end, right? Like that just like blew their mind, right? Like,
yeah.
But, and then Grant, he was really nice, like he said that sometimes in performance you don't need to auto-tune. I'm like, that's really sweet, but the kid is probably right, but it's just not the style.
Well, you know, I'm a rock and roller myself, and I see things that way. I think there's such a thing as being too polished.
Yeah.
Which is the danger of something auto-tuned.
The danger of auto-tune, the danger of like the copy and paste method of let's play the drums for 2 bars and cut it. Like, modern recording recording techniques is not my jam.
Sure, and like I was sort of, as you were talking about that, I was thinking about that a bit, like the whole idea that Grant was making you repeat things over and over again, whereas left to your own devices, you would have been like one take.
Yeah.
And of course, there are advantages to both. The advantage of doing it, just getting it out there and doing one take, you can often feel the urgency and the spontaneity, right? And, you know, like my fear in that position would be like, it would be, you know, it would like, after like doing 60 takes or whatever, like the soul would be drained out of the song, right?
But it worked out so well that like we had just done bed tracks for like a whole LP of songs that I was working on and really cared about. I didn't want to take any of those ones in there, so I just came up with a song like the night before. So it was so fresh still. And then also we did the guitar and the bass and the drums and all that was really live. It was mostly just like in the vocal booth, or like, hey, put a guitar solo on here, and I didn't plan for one, like that kind of thing. That was still one take. But usually, like when I go to record songs, it's been like 2 years since I wrote the thing or something,
right,
a lot of the time. Whereas like with this record, Hustler, I recorded and wrote all in one session because I got a new drum machine. I wanted to mess around with it in one night. So that one's really live, and then this one, it was like, it's all about timing. Like, it's very rare that you get in there to record it, like, when it means that much still, right?
Yeah. Speaking of hustler, like, when I watch what you're up to on Facebook, like, you are the queen of the hustle, you know, and like, you tour a lot, you're always playing around the city, you're always out to get the next show, I feel, right? So my question, I mean, I know that you teach guitar, so you're helping the younger generation of musicians, but how about on the business side? Like, if you were to give advice to young bands out there about how to hustle it, what would you say?
Well, the good thing is, once you've done it once, you know, people hire a publicist or whatever, but if you've done it once, then you have all those contacts there, and then you are a publicist essentially. But I don't know, for me it was easy because I like going to shows and I like chatting with people and I'm into other people's music. So if you get out there and do that and you support other people, then they support you, and so much of it is just like other musicians, right? And I like them and then they like me back, right? It's a lot of people try to play it by skipping that step, right? And it's like, well, why would someone come to your shows if you don't go to anybody else's, right? And you know, I think if they're gonna play it that way, it comes back around to me being cheap. You do it yourself and you just put the legwork in, right? And also just like copying. It's like, I've said this to people before, it's like you'd be like a little like private detective almost, you know? Like you like find a band and you see like who is writing about them or where they played, like to book a tour or who they're playing with, all this kind of stuff, and then just kind of like copy them, and then you can hit up those radio shows or you can hit up those blogs or those venues. Like, you can just copy someone else's tour, really, and then I don't know. Creeping.
So, yeah, I mean, that's what you're saying, like in another podcast interview I was listening to you with you, is you're creeping a little bit. So, like, that is maybe the negative side of having to do your own publicity.
On social media a lot.
Yeah.
Because I put on shows too, so like my brain's always working as a promoter. Like, even during the pandemic, like, when no bands are happening, I know all the new bands that came out and they had a little house show and I'm there, right? But it's because I'm like, well, maybe I could play with them. Like, you see a scene going, and when you're like a scene hopping person, you don't fit into any of them, then you're like, well, maybe I'll play with these bands, they're cool, right? And there's young bands now with young people going out to theirs, like that. There wasn't my exact age of people. That didn't happen, right? Your friends didn't carry over and then you guys all went to shows. Like, that wasn't a thing. Whereas all these young kids now, like, it's a huge group and not even all of them play in bands, right? Like, usually it's other bands at the show. Like, most people, they have some kind of connection, whether they are in a band doing radio stuff or something, right?
It's like a big family.
Yeah. Whereas, like, they're just there to hang out, you know?
So I guess in that case, it must be more stressful for you if you go and, say, like, play Saskatoon or something. Yeah,
but you can do the same thing. You just start making friends over there too, right?
Right.
And if you like their music, then they'll like it. It's everybody's just as desperate, right? And this goes for all the people who are like have radio shows or write or anything. Like, if they're so psyched to know that you knew they existed, and they're like, just like I'm so psyched to know that they knew I existed, right? So then you just gotta remember that everybody's in the same boat as you.
So, devil's advocate question: is paying for a promoter, is that worthwhile?
Well, I don't want to talk bad about anybody's profession, you know? And it's the same about studios and all that, right?
Right.
Like I think it's like, I'm not saying don't ever hire these people because it's an amazing thing and I respect what they do. I'm just saying that I know that my records aren't gonna make that money, so I'm not gonna spend that money, and I'm not about to ask the government for that money either.
That's for later.
Yeah, and the people who hire publicists, they have it's all the government, you know, like it's all grants and stuff, and I don't like paperwork.
Sure. So for a moment here, let's talk about the big dream. Okay, so let's imagine, I don't know, let's imagine 5 years down the road, you're like at the top of the Billboard charts. The Paige Drobot band, top of the Billboard charts. What's happening? Who are you hanging with? Who are you playing with?
Who am I
What are you
hanging
doing?
with?
What are you doing?
What am I doing? Can you believe I don't have a jacuzzi?
Yeah.
I don't know. I never thought about it that way because I never thought about. I just want to make records forever. I don't want to make a big one. I just want to keep making them, right?
Yeah.
What I would be doing though, it'd be cool to go.
That's a sign of authenticity. I feel that's a good thing.
Like I never think about it that way.
Yeah,
I never
right.
thought about that. I'd have a really sick studio.
Sure you would. Yeah.
Oh, like Rick Rubin. Wouldn't that be cool to hang out with him?
That would be cool. You'd be hanging with Rick Rubin. Sure.